Did you realize, I know I didn't, there is 400 times more melatonin in the gut mucosa through these cells called enterochromaffin cells than is actually in the pineal gland itself? I did not know that. And that is what this research elucidates, is a new field opening up in reference to melatonin itself. Now, we look at the title of the research, you begin to experience that basically they're saying it is the next vitamin D3 in regards to its versatility. In fact, it has a very, very yin and yang-like relationship, i.e., for example, before we look at this chart, for example, vitamin D being like a hormone and melatonin as well, you think of it this way. You need sunlight in order to help produce vitamin D. But the interesting part about it, the melatonin then comes in and helps mitigate the damage from the UV that you require in order to produce that sunlight. It's an incredible, incredible relationship. But let's look at this chart first. This chart, what does it represent? Obviously, this chart represents, on average, the natural decline in melatonin as a person progresses through years. Now, an interesting note to take away from this, look at the x-axis, follow the 0 and goes up the y-axis. You notice it's a very, very distinct low level. Interesting enough, when a newborn is born, it requires a lot of melatonin presented through breast milk. Then it spikes and then it declines. Now, interesting aspect as well, too, you think about it, if basically as a person begins to progress through the years and they need that sunlight to produce vitamin D, but that melatonin, in order to basically offset the damage from the UV light, you get the picture. As a person progresses through the years and they need that sunlight, they lose part of that defensive capability of the melatonin to protect from the UV light. And now you see how the whole yin and yang relationship between the two begins to work together. So we look at the next chart. There it is. You don't really even think about vitamin D as an anti-inflammatory, but we're going to come back to that anyways. So let's get right into the research as follows. Is melatonin the next vitamin D? A review of emerging science, clinical uses, safety, and dietary supplements. We're not going to go, the article is not going to delve on this aspect a lot into the dosaging before I proceed. What the article is really going to recommend is quite start low and work your way up. Another interesting takeaway from the article itself, if a person does too much melatonin, it tends to lower the body temperature, and that's one way they postulate or hypothesize that you can determine if you're taking too much melatonin just by having the chills at night. But to proceed, melatonin has become a popular dietary supplement, most known as a chronobiotic, and for establishing healthy sleep. Research over the last decade into cancer, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, fertility, PCOS, and many other conditions combined with, I'm not going to say it because if I say it, the videos they get throttled, has led to a greater awareness of melatonin because of its ability to act as a potent antioxidant, immune active agent, and mitochondrial regulator. There are distinct similarities between melatonin and vitamin D in the depth and breadth of their impact on health. Both act as hormones, affect multiple systems with the immune modulating anti-inflammatory functions, and are found in the skin and responsive to sunlight and darkness. In fact, there may be similarities between the widespread concern of vitamin D deficiency as a sunlight deficiency, I like this line here, and reduced melatonin secretion as a result of darkness deficiency, from overexposure to artificial blue light, and of course you have night shift work and so on and so forth. In addition to being compared with vitamin D, melatonin is also referred to as nature's most versatile biological signal, since its clinical application surpasses sleep. The classification of melatonin has been wide-ranging from the pineal hormone to amphiphilitic antioxidant. It is an ubiquitous molecule, an endolamine produced endogenously in animals and plants. As a result, humans continually either ingest it from exogenous dietary sources or produce it endogenously, please forgive me, then endogenously. In humans, it is largely produced from the amino acid tryptophan. Now, keep in mind, let me take a side step here. The author here really, really likes the idea of phytoproduced, or I should say melatonin produced from plants. are consumed from food, especially from plant sources, even though the dosage tends to be very, very low. They're finding ways of concentrating it. But to proceed, in humans, it is largely produced from the amino acid tryptophan by the pineal gland and in the gut residing enterochromaffin cells, as we covered in the beginning. Even though the pineal gland receives much attention for its melatonin production, there is 400 times more melatonin in the gut mucosa. Now, as to reiterate, like vitamin D, now we're just taking snippets from the full research here because there's no way we can cover the whole thing, but it's a hope it's going to attract your attention to actually look at the full research article itself, because it is pretty amazing. And as well, too, it talks about the bioavailability or lack of bioavailability of melatonin in many products, and also nutrients that complement and may enhance the effect of the melatonin itself, which you can't cover here, but it's in the article. Like vitamin D, melatonin is found throughout the body. Melatonin has been found in many tissues other than the pineal gland and the gut mucosa, including the brain, retina, lens, cochlea, trachea, skin, liver, kidney, thyroid, pancreas, thymus, spleen, and reproductive tissues. It is present in nearly all bodily fluids, cerebrospinal fluid, saliva, bile, synovial fluid, amniotic fluid, urine, feces, semen, and breast milk. Specifically, vitamin D and melatonin may work synergistically in the skin. This is really cool. I know someone's going to come out there and develop a skincare product that's going to have melatonin in it as well, because here we go. Ultraviolet UVB radiation is required to convert 70 hydrocholesterol in the skin to vitamin D3. At the same time, melatonin is an antioxidant of the skin to ward off the damaging effects of UV light. In the future, there may be more skincare innovations that involve both vitamin D and melatonin due to the activities they share in the skin. The release of melatonin in the gut acts in a paracrine manner to increase activity and circulation in the gastric mucosa and enhances GI motility. With the increased production of gastrin, melatonin has been attributed to increasing the tone of the lower esophageal sphincter. Further, melatonin has an anti-excitatory properties in the gut. It could stimulate the regeneration of epithelial cells and has been shown to have a protective antioxidant effect of the lining of the GI tract. I wanted to pull out highlight out there because a lot of people suffer from ulcerations, things along those lines, or ailments along those lines. If for melatonin to serve this purpose, and you have the enterochromaffin cells that help produce melatonin in order to protect the GI, you start thinking as melatonin as being a feasible prophylactic in reference to basically issues of the gut. But to proceed, this is another great highlight from this. Just give you an idea how incredible it is. A randomized multi-center parallel group design was conducted in which melatonin was compared with amitriptyline and a placebo for 12 weeks. Check this out. A 3 milligram dose of melatonin reduced migraine frequency, demonstrating the same effectiveness as amitriptyline. Oh, it gets better. In the primary endpoint of the frequency of migraine headaches per month, melatonin, only talking 3 milligrams, was superior to amitriptyline in the percentage of patients with a greater than 50% reduction in migraine frequency. And melatonin was better tolerated than amitriptyline. It has been also reported to be an effective treatment for primary headache disorders. That's just kind of like a little bit of the gold that you could pull out of these research articles as you begin to delve into it itself. That's pretty amazing. Quote, now this is an interesting aspect I wanted to pull into because it gives you a highlight of, of a potential or postulating how much melatonin is right for an individual. Again, we're not diagnosing or dispensing or prescribing. This just gives you an idea from the researcher itself that may be a viable tool in determining if an individual has taken too much melatonin. Remember we discussed about lowering the body temperature, something I did not know in regard to melatonin as well. But to proceed, it is an intriguing point that we need to lower our body temperature to sleep well, but doing so excessively can disrupt sleep. Melatonin's action of lowering body temperature is important to monitor and may give significant clues to the appropriate dosage. Symptoms like needing more blankets or excessive movement may indirectly suggest an imbalance of melatonin. All right, we're going to conclude there, but I want to basically look as far as the clinical impact chart that the researcher or researchers placed in the full text article to give an idea of everything it is being incorporated or revolving around at this point in time or being investigated as. It is an incredibly promising substance. And the more we look into it, the more promise it has in mitigating an incredible amount of ailments that yield negative outcomes. In short, make people's lives a heck of a lot better for minimum expense and minimal effort. That could be pretty darn incredible. So again, you got to thank the researchers itself. I do believe they're onto something in regard to melatonin being the next vitamin D, because it's just again, look at everything it covers. And it complements vitamin D so well between the day and night cycles. It's like they were made for each other, so to say. But again, gratitude to the researchers. I am humbled that you watch. Many of you come over from my TikTok channel, which is my personal channel. But ironically, we get approximately, right at this point, 20 to 30 times more views on TikTok than we do YouTube. So take note, researchers, when you're releasing research. I know the TikTok sounds kind of odd, and I love YouTube, and I will not abandon YouTube, but if you're looking to gain traction, it's quite interesting. But again, I am gratitude. I am humbled that you were here. Gratitude to the researchers, and I look forward to see you once again next week. Get you there. Now go. The DOI citation is linked on the YouTube site. I strongly recommend you follow it. It's incredible, and it's just a good read. All right, guys, girls, others, they, you know what I mean. I'll catch you all later on. Get you then. Bye.